Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today our chair is not in, so do we need Chris? Do we need to take a vote for who's going to be the pro tem, or I can start a meeting?
Yes, this would be the point, members of the commission, to take a vote as to who will serve as chair pro tem for this evening only.
I nominate Ruby to take over and chair the meeting.
And I would be happy to second that.
Okay. Then let's move forward. Roll call, please. Eric?
Item 1, regular business agenda. Item 1A, roll call. Commissioner Merabian. Commissioner Sulayan.
Here.
Commissioner Weissman.
Here.
Commissioner Welch.
Here.
Chairperson Sahagian.
Okay. Next item.
Item 1B, flag salute. Commissioner Sulayan.
Okay. I'd like to ask Chris Welch to do flag salute.
Everyone please rise. Put your hand over her. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next item, Eric.
Item 2, posting of agenda. The agenda for the Monday, March 23rd, 2009 regular meeting of the Glendale Transportation and Parking Commission was posted by Friday, March 20th, 2009, before 5:30 p.m. on the bulletin board outside of City Hall.
Okay. Next item.
Item 3, approval of minutes. Item 3A, February 23rd, 2009 regular meeting approval of minutes.
Gentlemen?
I had no comments.
No corrections.
Okay.
So I move the minutes as presented.
Second.
Okay. Can we take roll call on this? No. Okay. Next item. All right.
Item 4, oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes. The commission may question the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision.
Okay. I got 2 cards here. If anybody wants to speak on oral communication, a bunch of cards in the back that you need to fill up. First speaker is Herbert Milano.
Good afternoon. My name is Herbert Milano, Chair of Pro Tem Sulayan, Commissioner Welch, Commissioner Weissman, City staff. Is normally oral communications 3 minutes? Or is it 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
I believe it's 5 minutes.
Okay, so perhaps you can readjust it. Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to address what is a perception of my experience in making presentations to various different commissions and in front of the City Council for the past 8 years. And I say this, I think I'm a veteran of at least 500 presentations. And I have a particular sense of urgency with regard to the role of a commission such as this one and the importance that it has for the residents and the stakeholders of Glendale. For a very long time, I've gone to commissions where oftentimes the only person present, it's me, whether it's Glendale Water and Power or whether it's the Audit Committee and so forth. And oftentimes I am the only speaker. It is nice to see an engagement where the public is coming back and being engaged actively. And it is my hope that it's one of the measures of your success in the future, that the number of people that come before you is a testament of your outreach to the general public. But what seems to be prevalent in the city of Glendale is that commissioners seem to be subservient to the city staff. In other words, when the city staff comes and tells you there's nothing for you to discuss, the commission meetings are canceled. It was like this, at the year before last, when more than 50% of the meetings were canceled, and apparently not by the chair, but by the city staff. And I have a lot of contentions with that, because we definitely have no shortage of problems having to do with traffic and traffic safety and parking and difficulty with many neighborhoods that have now reached the point of saturation with insufficient parking due to the significant number of variances that were given to many new developments with regard to multifamily housing. I have also seen how there has been a lack of information being passed through to you with regard to environmental impact reports. They simply bypass you. And what I'm calling you to do is to take charge of this commission, that you represent the public, you are our voice to some extent, you carry our interests forward, not the city staff. And I think it's time to change. Now, under the leadership of Mr. What's the chair's name? Sahakian.
Aram Sakin.
You know, I think he has been a bit too subservient, in my opinion, to the city staff. And I think that after 3 years, it is time for new leadership, and it is my hope that Mr. Sulayan, that you take the reins for this coming year. And it is my hope that Mr. Wiseman will assist in bringing you forward, because we need someone who's going to take charge of these meetings and address month to month the issues that have been simmering for a very long time. Look, when we had the issue of the safety at Toll Middle School and the child that was killed, Mr. Wiseman happened to be there, but the rest of you were not. But at the same time, when proposals were being made by Councilman Ara Najarian, he just bypassed you altogether. It's almost like if you guys didn't exist. Why? You don't have any reports being given by the police to come here and tell us where the hotspots are. Why shouldn't we know? Why shouldn't we have a monthly report on the status of safety and traffic in the city of Glendale? I think traffic and transportation is sort of part of your the area of responsibility for this commission. And now, of course, as you see other areas in Glendale that are becoming excessively constrained by the lack of parking, because variances were given to building owners, who in the past were given a lot of money in campaign contributions, and I think it was a quid pro quo. At the end of the day, after many years of doing the same thing, neighborhoods become choked where we cannot find parking any longer. It means that previous commissions were not doing their job in asserting their responsibility and serving the needs of the public and not the needs of the city staff. And I think that we need to make sure that the leadership that comes forth from the commission are really looking out for the interest of the public, because it has not been served well in the past. And I'm telling you, I've seen and I watched this commission for a very long time, and I think it's time for you guys to put on your pants, and say, who wears the pants in this house? Anyway, that's my opinion. My name is Herbert Milano. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Milano. Our next speaker is Ralph Shagling. Okay.
I believe there was a handout that was passed around. I just kind of wrote my speech down so I can give all the information within my allotted time. So if you want, you can read along. Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Ralph Shovlin, and I want to say good evening, Commissioners of the Glendale Traffic and Transportation Committee and employees of the City of Glendale. I want to thank you for this opportunity to inform you about our concerns regarding the current street parking situation in the City of Glendale's Car Park neighborhood. Our 5-block neighborhood, which is adjacent to Glendale High School, El Rio Motel, and Car Park, consists of over 40 homes, over 20 apartments, with an estimated population of 500 residents. As you can see, our Car Park neighborhood is a congested neighborhood. I have distributed a package containing 3 letters discussing this parking issue, starting with our first letter in October 2007 and our last letter of February of this year, as well as the City of Glendale's response to our September 2008 letter and the speech that I'm reading to you this evening. Over 6 months ago, the street parking restrictions for Harvard Street, Orange Grove Avenue, and the east side of Campus Street in our Car Park neighborhood were changed to 1-hour parking from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week, except for the respective residents on each of these 3 streets. Because there are no parking restrictions on Maynard Street and Carr Drive, which is the most populous part of the Car Park neighborhood, these street parking restrictions have posed a hardship on the Car Park residents who live on Maynard Street and Carr Drive. Some of these residents and their guests may be forced to park their cars outside of the Car Park neighborhood, thereby possibly impacting the parking situation in our neighboring communities. As shown in the enclosed 8 pages of photographs of cars parked throughout the Car Park neighborhood in my February 21, 2009 letter to Mr. John O. Bagdanian, Traffic and Transportation Administrator, which is contained in the package that I just gave you, you will note that all the street parking spaces are taken on Maynard Street and Carr Drive, while there are many unused street parking spaces on the 3 streets with the current parking restrictions. You will also note a resident with a Harvard Street parking permit parked his or her car on Maynard Street, which only has parking on one side of the street and no empty street parking spaces. The current street parking restrictions in the car park neighborhood have essentially created ample private street parking for the residents on Harvard Street, Orange Grove Avenue, and the east side of Campus Drive at the expense of the residents of Carr Drive and Maynard Street. Some of my car park neighbors and I want to know how we can feasibly create a preferential street parking district in the car park neighborhood so the car park neighborhood residents can park any on the 5 streets in our neighborhood. Because the City of Glendale's Traffic and Transportation Committee supported a preferential street parking district and disagreed with any further street parking restrictions on specific streets during your November 26, 2007 meeting, and my neighbors and I never received any public notifications about the current street parking restrictions created over 6 months ago, we request that you rescind these street parking restrictions and implement the prior but less stringent street parking restrictions until the car park neighborhood residents can properly address this issue with the appropriate City of Glendale agency. I mailed a September 30, 2008 letter addressing our concerns regarding this issue to Mr. Jeff Brown. On October 14, 2008, I received a telephone call from Mr. Brown that he would schedule a meeting between the car park neighborhood residents and representatives from the City of Glendale to discuss our concerns. However, I later received a February 2, 2009 package from Mr. Tad Dombrowski that appears to describe how to establish a preferential street parking on the 100 block of Maynard Street, not the preferential parking district in the car park neighborhood. Based on recent input that we have received from City of Glendale staff, we understand that if we want to obtain a preferential street parking district in the car park neighborhood, we need to obtain at least 75% of the signatures of the residents on each of our 5 streets. However, because of the residents on Harvard Street, Orange Grove Avenue, and Campus Street currently have more than ample street parking, we do not anticipate obtaining the 75% minimum signatures from residents on each of these 3 streets. Therefore, I would appreciate if you could let us know the best method for achieving a preferential street parking district in the car park neighborhood, or offer another viable alternative to provide some street parking relief for the residents on Maynard Street and Carr Drive. Some car park neighbors, residents on Maynard Street and Carr Drive are frustrated we have not yet been given a feasible procedure for addressing our October 15, 2007 request to create preferential street parking in the car park neighborhood. During this time, we had to endure the lack of parking on the west side of Campus Street during special events at Moy Stadium, especially during the football season. You can refer to the package that I've distributed for more information on our street parking situation. Once again, I want to thank you for listening to our concerns regarding this issue. We look forward to hearing some constructive guidance or input from you on how to resolve this issue. And you can contact me as listed in the package. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chauvin. Can you hold on just a minute? Who is parking on your particular street?
I believe,
Are they students?
I believe what it is, it's probably a neighbor that lives on the corner of Harvard and Maynard. And you can't say blame because I think he owns the house next to it. And because ours don't have restrictive parking, anybody could park there. And the problem we basically have is because we live in the most populous area with apartments and everything, I guess they were grandfathered in before you have the restrictive parking you have now. Ours is packed. Basically, if we had restrictive parking just for Maynard, we don't feel that it would be enough for our area. But if you take a look at the pictures, you'll note that, for instance, on Orange Grove, only a third of the parking spaces are being used. And on campus, on the one side has parking restrictions. Many times when I go by there, I see only 1 or 2 cars parked there. And on Harvard, I think they use about 60% of their parking spaces. But consistently, I've walked it with Norrick Safari, that you see Carr Drive, and Maynard Street just packed.
Are there any kind of parking restrictions, like 2 hours or anything like that on the 2 streets you're
No, there
referencing?
is not. I think except for street sweeping, I think on Friday you can't be there from 8 to 12.
Would you be interested in preferential parking?
We would, but the problem we're having is the few residents, I don't really hear it directly from the residents, but I hear it from some of the people in the audience that heard from the residents. They won't go for preferential parking because they like it the way it is. And you can't blame them. So we're basically asking, when we came to the meeting on November 26, 2007, the gentleman sitting right there understood the issues, and he says, you either leave it as is with some restrictions, or you have preferential parking. But I think what happened is there's some system where they got the more restrictive parking we have now. Before it was, I think it was 2-hour parking, 5 days a week with fewer hours. Now it's 7 days a week, and I don't have the, I think it's 1 hour parking, and I think it's 7 in the morning to 10 is what's written down there. And the problem we're having is there's no way we can approach them, because to get 75%, we don't feel we can get that. We might get some, but it's just, we're
It's
fighting an uphill battle.
75% each block, not the neighborhood.
Yeah, each block. No, cars, getting on Manor Street and Car Drive won't be a problem, but we don't foresee getting it on the other 3 streets.
Okay. Steph, any comments?
Chairman Solana, members of the commission. A couple quick clarifications. First of all, as a city ordinance does not have district parking. In other words, if you were to say, we're going to take a neighborhood and turn that into a district parking, we don't have preferential district parking in our city ordinance. We can go look at a neighborhood and make it all preferential parking for all of the residents, but we can't just say it's a district and have everybody in that district sign a petition. The closest thing we can do is what we did in the Glendale Community College area, where we put in preferential parking all around the college in a large area the council approved, and then individual streets that they wanted to have preferential parking, automatically they got it. All they had to do is to apply for it, and they can get it. The issue about campus, Maynard, Carr, we've had since 2007. The gentleman is correct. We've had meetings with the neighbors, and there is a difficulty in terms of agreeing on what would be the best solution. What's good for the entire, like for Carr Street or Maynard, is not good for Campus Drive. What's good for campus may not be good for Harvard. So we have the preferential parking. They've had it for years. They want it to be more restrictive in order to prevent the schools, parents or visitors or people going to the games to park on the street. But it is true that with the new restriction, Campus and Orange Grove and Harvard don't have as much parking because people cannot park there anymore. The neighbors used to be able to park on those streets. Now 7 days a week they cannot park there. So my suggestion is, which we did this once, but maybe with the help of 1 or 2 of the commissioners, so you can be involved in the solution, that we have a meeting again with the neighbors and bring in the Campus, Orange Grove, a representative of the neighbors, and look at it for a solution and see what we can agree or compromise, because there has to be a compromise. Otherwise, you will not reach, because it's going to pin one neighborhood, one street against the other. Campus Drive wants it their way, Orange Grove wants it their way, Maynard and
Right.
Carr wants it not their way, but the way that it will help them to do the parking. So my suggestion is to address this gentleman's address. If 1 or 2 of the commissioners would volunteer, we'll schedule a time, we'll set up a time with the neighbors, we'll notify everybody, ask for a representative. We pretty much know who the representatives are. For example, Mr. Lalayan was the one who petitioned for that neighborhood. And, we have to go back and revisit that issue. I don't have a solution for it, to be honest with you, because we've tried everything and don't reach an agreement, but maybe we should try again to see what we can do, because there's no district parking. If they were, and we haven't asked them to go ahead and have everybody sign a petition to get district parking in that neighborhood. It was for the streets that they wanted, so at least they would prevent others to park on Maynard or Carr.
I kind of forgot a little bit. Is this 7 days, 12 hours a day during the day?
24 hours a day.
24 hours a day.
Right. That's what we approved in the commission.
I think it's
No, I'm
like
talking
6.
about the street on Maynard and Cars.
They don't have preferential parking right now.
And is it packed 24 hours a day?
Yeah, because on-street, they don't have enough on-street parking, off-street parking, as a result, because one of the streets is one way, you can only park on one side of the street, so it makes the problem worse.
Yeah, I've been on Carr, especially. That street there's never any parking on that street.
So are they mostly folks who live in the neighborhood, or are we talking about students?
On a typical night, it's
Yes.
the neighborhood who parks it, but when you have a football game or if you have anything else, there is people who also visit. However, again, since this is not on the agenda,
Okay.
and before we go into more details, I would ask the commissioners if either one of you is interested to volunteer. We will work with Mr. Ralph and try to set up a meeting, invite all the stakeholders, and try to come with a solution before we bring it to the commission, because if we put them through the process of petitioning, they'll come here and you'll have a divided group of residents.
Correct.
One wants one thing, one wants the other. We would rather come to with a compromise solution and get it approved.
Thank you, Mr. John.
I'd be perfectly happy to volunteer. I don't know if any of my colleagues would like to join me, but my time is pretty flexible, so I can make myself available.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
Okay. We will be in touch
Okay.
with the neighbors.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. I have one more speaker on oral condition. Nancy Pena.
Good evening, gentlemen and lady. I just wanted to add a little bit more information to what my neighbor Ralph had said.
Can you state your name?
Oh, Nancy Pena, and I live in the Car Park neighborhood. This all started because there were problems with parking during football season, and that's what got the community upset because they were blocking driveways, breaking sprinklers, leaving trash. That's what started. So there was that concern about the parking. But what has happened is that Carr and Maynard have been isolated. We have parking problems because what's happened is that Orange Grove and part of campus and Harvard have turned into private parking communities. If you live there, you can park there. If you don't live there, you cannot park there. So that does not make for good feelings in the community. Yes, we can park from 10 p.m. until like 7, I believe, 7 a.m. Well, if you're willing to get out of bed at 7 and move your car and then get out of there, okay, you have access to the whole neighborhood. But it's like a private community. Nobody else can park there. And does anybody else have that, in the city? And the changes were made without thinking of the impact, considering the impact on the whole neighborhood. You can go at 6 o'clock in the evening, Carr is packed, Maynard is packed, and there is all this empty space on Harvard and on Orange Grove and also on campus. And, it might be it's good for them, but what about the rest of the neighborhood? We're severely impacted by that. So, whatever, if we can meet, I don't know, the football situation, I don't know what can be done about that, but now it's impacting the rest of the neighborhood negatively 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, sorry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Pena. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I may, instead of staff would request that item 6.6A on the reports be taken ahead of the other items, if Commission will permit us, and I'd like to introduce staff that is present here to provide information to the Commission and seek your input.
Okay. Is my commission read? Okay.
Brief?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If you, Eric, would you read that item?
Item 6A, reports. Report regarding multifamily parking enforcement.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Mr. Alan Loomis from Planning Department is here to give input to the Transportation Parking Commission on a referral from the City Council to receive City Transportation Parking Commission's input. With Mr. Loomis, we have Planning Director Mr. Hagani and Mr. Sam Engel from Community Development to address any questions that you may have. So with that, I'd like to refer to Mr. Loomis to make the presentation.
Thank you, Jono. Members of the Commission, thank you for your time. This item comes to you from the January 27th, 2009 City Council meeting, a special meeting that was held in the afternoon. And I am making a presentation on behalf of Kristen Asp, who's the senior planner who prepared the report but wasn't able to attend tonight. So bear with me as I'm not 100% familiar with all the background. However, Mr. Hagani and Mr. Engel can probably answer questions. But essentially at that meeting on the 27th, a report was given to the City Council regarding parking in multifamily areas. and some of the enforcement issues and code issues that entails. And at that meeting, the City Council, there was a number of options outlined in that report, which was attached to and provided to you, regarding possible changes to the zoning ordinance and some possible pros and cons related to enforcement issues that those changes might present as it relates to addressing this particular problem. At that time, the City Council did not take any particular action other than to say they would like this item to come to the Transportation and Parking Commission for your consideration and review. So that is why it is now sitting on your desk. Essentially, the issue in multifamily zones and areas has to do with a sort of separation between how the parking spaces are rented relative to the apartments. In some cases, there are parking spaces that are not rented to people who are renting apartments, and this leads to sometimes parking problems. On-street parking gets overcrowded and there's unavailable parking. Some of these issues are kind of legacy of apartment buildings that were built at a time when we didn't have our current parking standards as well. There's also a somewhat related issue that was brought up on commercial parking in terms of spillover parking potentially from commercial property owners that limit who's using their parking facilities. Again, if they have inadequate parking, that's also an issue that was raised. So these issues were presented to the City Council. As I said, they suggested that further discussion on these items be taken to the Transportation and Parking Commission. So with that, we've prepared a somewhat tentative schedule of how we would propose to address these issues. The first step, which was suggested to the City Council, is to engage a forum with some of the larger property management companies that manage apartment complexes in the city to get their sense of what the issues are and possible code amendments that they may see suitable and what they would see as the pros and cons to that, and come back with a report as to what their opinions are. Depending on how what information we get back from that, there may be further discussion with the Commission, as well as further input from you as to how you would best see the opportunities to address this issue. So at this point, it's simply an informational item to suggest that you will be asked to consider this issue in greater detail based on Council direction. So with that, if there are any questions regarding the content of the Council report, we'd be happy to entertain those.
Mr. Chairman, I think that for something this far-reaching, it might be advisable for the Commission to appoint perhaps a study group, a committee of 2 of our members to sort of be part of that process, to attend these seminars that they have with the property owners, and to be an integral part of the process to represent the Commission as it goes through that process.
I would have no problem with that. The only problem that most of us will have is when would the meeting will be, during the day or after working hours, and if that's possible.
At this point, we don't know. But
Right.
It's all tentative at this point.
Yeah, tentative, yeah.
If I may address that, good evening, members of the Commission and Chair Pro Tem. Our suspicion is that if we want to meet with management companies, they will probably like to meet during business hours, as that would not prevent them from having the leisure of going home after work. So we would probably have to accommodate them. It'll likely be during the day.
Okay, thank you. So is this a report that we can't debate in any shape or form? It's just an information only, like Mr. Loomis just said?
If you wish, have any questions, this is just the beginning, essentially.
I see. Okay.
As Council referred this item to the Commission, we wanted you to be familiar with the issue. If you have any questions or clarifications that you want on this particular report or any of the items listed, staff is present here to answer those questions. If you have any ideas that you want us to pursue, that's what's the purpose of it.
I have a couple of questions. I'd be curious to know what are the percentage of, specifically for the multi-family residential properties, what are the percentage that renters have an option either to rent a unit, or if they like to have a parking, they have to pay extra? Are most landlords in Glendale implement that kind of policy, or is it packaged all into one?
I'm not, Commissioner Solani, and I'm not sure that we have an answer to that, but it
Right.
could be something if we meet with the property management companies, we could ask them that.
And the other question I have, does council has authority to change the ordinance? I don't know if it's actually it's an ordinance where it requires landlords to rent the unit with the parking space.
Okay.
We already, again, this is Hassan Haghani, Director of Planning. We already have some code language in the zoning code that gives the city the authority up to a certain point to engage in enforcing code requirements within each property. But we can the city council always has the authority to change the code, make it more restrictive or less restrictive. But part of the series of discussions we're going to have with you is the practicality of going in certain directions. We need to really see if we change the language in the code, whether or not, first of all, it's going to meet the intended result, and second, how are we going to enforce those? So that will be part of the discussion, because we can always write stricter codes. Whether or not they're applicable or practical is a different question.
And I think it's for exactly these reasons that I think it's important that we have a study group as part of that process. So,
I can tell you from my experience, I used to live in Santa Monica and was renting an apartment. And at one point, I don't remember what year, the city changed. They gave a leverage to the landlords where they can they can charge the parking space more money. As a result, if you ever go to Santa Monica nowadays, you can't find parking at all on the streets, at all. Most people park on the streets. So I don't know if that's the reason I asked the question, if council has the authority to change that.
Council has the authority, and it's interesting that you raised what Santa Monica did. In fact, in new transportation planning procedures, a lot of times they recommend unbundling parking spaces from the rental property as a way of reducing demand and increasing demand on public transportation. And that was one of the things, for example, that you reviewed in the bundle of the pieces of information that were presented to you under the downtown mobility study at the time that the downtown specific plan was adopted. You reviewed certain policies for downtown alone. We have a sense that not the same policy will apply everywhere in the city. In different locations, we may have to consider different policies, and I think you would be the appropriate body that could give some advice as to what would be appropriate where. And that'll be one of the intentions of this study group, and I think the idea of having two commissioners work with staff and then reporting to the entire commission periodically is a great idea.
So when do you foresee the next possible meeting regarding this issue?
We are working with neighborhood services to reach out to some of the major. Mr. Engel may be able to better answer this question because he knows that some of these management companies.
Once we receive a direction from you, Chair Pro Tem Slayan, and from the Traffic and Parking Commission, we're going to be proceeding with the outreach. We have a couple of things that are on track ahead of that. Part of it was to get this issue in front of you tonight, like Mr. Haghani said, and then to start calendaring it with all of our other outreach efforts that are going on at this point. And there are a significant number of them going on, including all of the efforts that are going on in the planning department right now. So the short answer to this would probably be sometime midsummer.
was it your intention to do an outreach to every property owner of multifamily in the city, or just a selection of different sizes, for example, or something?
You're getting into the nuts and bolts, but I think there are, in Glendale, the apartment owners are represented by two professional organizations, the Foothill Apartment Owners Association and the San Fernando Valley Apartment Owners Association. We have the ability to work with them to reach, through their direct mailing, probably 75 to 80% of all owners. In addition to that, there are probably 8 or 9 large property management companies that we kind of work with through our enforcement efforts in neighborhood services, where we can, one, involve them in getting some good feedback on what the policies, if we were to propose to change them through this process, would mean for them, both pro and con. Just like Commissioner Salayan said with Santa Monica, there are sometimes what look to be really good things to happen as a result of that. I'm sure with Santa Monica, the ability to charge for the parking was a way of circumventing rent control. The unintended consequence of that, and that's why these study sessions are so important, is you ended up not being ever able to find a parking place on the street anymore because of the charging for that. So what the City Council realized, and I'm speaking for all of us at this point, is that if we're going to go in and look at these things, we need to realize from residents what they see the impact are going to be, from the commercial property management companies and the mom and pop owners. Quite honestly, some of the mom and pop owners have told us we'd look to some help to help us deal with some of our clogged parking. And if the city can help us, that would help us with the managing our buildings.
Yeah, I would definitely suggest a specific outreach to the mom and pops, because I think that they probably represent the largest group.
They do.
And they're not likely to be members of these big associations, or less likely to be members.
Actually, they're more likely to be members of the associations, weirdly enough.
Really?
The larger property management companies aren't. Because they run separately. But I have to tell you, we try to maintain good working relationships with both of them, because it's good for us sometimes just to be able to bounce ideas off of them, because we need to have a working relationship with them. So sometime middle of summer, I think, is whenever we're going to be able to do some of this stuff, I think, after some of these other issues calm down in the next couple months.
Okay. Any questions, Commissioner Weissman?
No questions. I am interested in following up, though, with getting a two-person subcommittee appointed. And I don't know that there's any good way to volunteer the guys who aren't here today. But again, I have a fairly flexible schedule, so I'm willing to participate in that.
Okay.
Again, if we have anybody else.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item. Eric? Yeah. Yes, he's on 6A.
Yeah. He would like to speak on this item.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, Mr. Morano. I thought it was 7.
To open the public.
Okay, item 6A, Mr. Morano.
Thank you, Mr. Solayan, Commissioner, City Staff. My name is Herbert Molano. I've, as a landlord, and having an apartment building that I bought new about 22 years ago, I have experienced firsthand, and I think I have a fairly good understanding of the dynamics that occur in various neighborhoods where there's a lot of multifamily housing, and the problem that we face, meaning the landlords and the tenants. I want to say that I want to commend the staff for bringing in some fairly important points that are a significant issue for many of the tenants. I support many of the initial ideas that were presented here. Many, if not most, of the buildings that were built throughout the 1980s and after generally were given a variance. So you usually would find on a 10-unit building at least 2 units with at least only 1 parking space. And so given that families grow, eventually you find that some tenants don't have sufficient parking space and they park in front or on the street. But as more and more buildings get variances, eventually got to the point where we have less and less parking. I am a proponent that parking really is part of the rental agreement, not as a separate charge. Because I do know other property owners in the area who are renting out their garages and some of the parking to individuals who are not tenants, basically just renting it out for individuals who have a specialty type of automobiles, or they're using it for actually selling other items on the weekend. And I think that our tenants really need the ability, the objective should always be, are we making more parking available to tenants? I do have a contention with a couple of assumptions that were made here, is that somehow one of the objectives is to increase demand on public transportation. In other words, if we force individuals not to have parking space, then we force them into public transportation. I can tell you that in Glendale, in the city of Los Angeles proper, there isn't enough public transportation for us to be heading into that kind of direction. If this is by any chance, any type of way of facilitating fewer parking spaces for future building, I'll tell you something, that should not be the way this commission should head. I would like to participate in this process, as I did years ago with the just cause for eviction ordinance. I generally understand how these dynamics take place, but I would like to make a couple of suggestions that only 10% of the multifamily buildings are managed by professional organizations, and most of us belong either to AGLA or to some of the other larger organizations, but oftentimes they don't know the dynamics that are really taking place within the city of Glendale, so you should be wary of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Morano. Okay. Next item, Eric.
Item 5, public hearing. Item 5A, report regarding application by Northwest Medical Transportation for a renewal of an owner's permit to operate non-emergency medical vehicle service in the city of Glendale. 5A1, motion to approve the renewal application for an owner's permit to operate 5 non-emergency medical vehicles in Glendale by Northwest Medical Transportation. 5A2, motion to deny the renewal application for an owner's permit to Northwest Medical Transportation to operate 5 non-emergency medical vehicles in Glendale and continuing the matter with no further notice to April 27, 2009. 5A3, motion to approve the application for an owner's permit to operate 11 non-emergency medical vehicles in Glendale by Northwest Medical Transportation. 5A4, motion to deny the application for an owner's permit to Northwest Medical Transportation to operate 11 non-emergency medical vehicles and continuing the matter with no further notice to April 27, 2009.
Thank you. Mr. Bagdanian.
Chairman Pro Tem and members of the Commission, we have a number of applications tonight for your consideration. So what I'd like to do, if you're okay with the idea, that briefly state what the applicant is requesting in terms of whether there's a renewal, or if it's a renewal, they're also asking for additional vehicles. The rest of the background information, experience, type of vehicles are already listed in the staff report. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer your questions. Also, we have staff from City Clerk's office here present that can assist you if you have any questions as well. On this Northwest Medical Transportation, the applicant has been in operation in Glendale. They have operated 5 vehicles, non-emergency vehicles. They're here to renew their application. In addition, because of their business has expanded and there's higher demand for it, they're requesting to add 6 more permits to their operation, 6 more vehicles to their operation. So they'll have a total of 11 permits that would allow them to serve the needs of their customers. So staff is recommending that the Commission approves the 5 that they're renewing and allow them to the additional 6 permits. That is our recommendation. I have staff again here is present. We can answer any questions that you may have. And the applicant has also been notified and they're present here.
Thank you. Mr. Bagdanian, do we have a number that a threshold number, how many of them?
Under the non-emergency, there is no number. We don't have a threshold like the taxi permits, where we have a cap of 83 permits that are issued every year. With non-emergency, it's somewhat different because what we have found over the number of years that we issue these permits is that most of the applicants find a niche market. Whether they're dealing with a particular doctor, or they're dealing with a medical facility or a hospital, or they're catering to customers that are Russian, Armenian, Korean, that they find that niche market that they serve that technically is not necessarily served by the rest of the companies that are operating in Glendale. Although we have a lot of operators, but over the years what you find is some of the operators that start with one vehicle, if they cannot survive and expand their services, usually they do not renew in the following year. But majority of them have been able to sustain their business in Glendale, and they've expanded in Burbank and Pasadena, so they have a bigger customer base as they start their business. This applicant, for example, has been in business since 1999. And so we haven't had any problems with them, so we're recommending that the additional permits also be approved.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Welsh?
How many, I didn't go through and do the math, but how many additional licenses are being applied for in total with all of these applications tonight?
For tonight, if you bear with me, I'll have one of my staff do that calculation.
Okay.
I was
just
actually
curious, and-
trying to do that myself, and I was going to do it before the meeting, but I forgot to do that. So in a couple of minutes, we should be able to give you that.
Okay, because my follow-up question would be, how does that correlate at all to other increases that you've seen in years past when we've had requests for renewals? Have you seen a big jumps like this in past where they've seen big increases in the business and so a subsequent increase in the number of licenses requested?
Be honest with you, from the years that I've processed this application, there's really not a clear trend. One year you'll see that the applicants are more, and another year that they only come in for renewals and they're not adding applicants. On the average, we get at least 3 or 4 new applicants every year that they start with one vehicle, or they've asked for 5, or a couple of these applicants that they've asked for like 4 or 5. We always recommend to the commission that they be given one permit and see if they can survive with one permit. And then if they're doing well, the following year they come in and they add more. So there's really not a clear trend to say one year is more or less than previous years.
And so staff has evaluated and doesn't see any issues with allowing big increases in additional licenses?
No, I think, as I said earlier, for this type of a service that they provide, they find a niche market that currently is not being served by the other operators. So it is also very interesting for us as well that we find that there's constantly more of these operators that are starting, and that's why we recommend to be careful not to give too many to a new operator unless we make sure that operator is qualified, they have the insurance, they can operate at least for 1 year, and we can see that they're a good operator. We don't have any complaints that are registered with the city clerk's office. And then if we're going to give them more, then we'll do it in the subsequent year, and if they want to, if their business is expanding. We have found there are some that they started it, they didn't have enough customer base, and they lost it. Gas prices can have an impact, for example, in the operation. But so far, if you look at some of which we have a table in the staff report, some of them have been around, and they've started in Glendale, they've been around since 1999, and either they've increased their service or they've maintained this level of service that they have.
You have a chart that shows when
yes,
they
if
came
you
in?
look at the back of the staff report, there is a table that shows you all the non-emergency medical transportation providers.
Yes, I see that one.
Yeah.
It doesn't show when they started the business, though.
I'm sorry, it doesn't. But it varies because we did a revamp of the entire non-emergency application processes to make sure that these vehicles are inspected, and every 5 years they come in for a renewal. So even though that they do an annual permit renewal every 5 years, we look at the applicant again to make sure that they meet all the requirements. So we are one of the only cities, I want to say, that we truly regulate the taxis and the non-emergencies compared to other cities that all you have to do is just go in and get sign a application and fill it out. We go through this process with the commission to get it approved. So we're more strict than other cities.
Okay. Do we have an answer yet?
Have 10 new vehicles that are being added. The rest, 9 vehicles are being renewed. The current operators are renewing what they have, 9 vehicles, and either through new applicants or existing operators that are asking for additional vehicles, there's 10 of them. So 10 new permits are being requested.
10 new.
10 new,
Additional.
Additional.
Questions, Mr. Weisman?
No, it just so we're.
I have one question. It says here the drivers are required to receive certification, first aid, and CPR. Are those certificates renewable every year or every 5 years? They are?
Every year
Year.
that, as part of the permit application, when they come in for their renewals, they have to provide that to city clerk's office for their review to get into their file.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Not at this time.
No? Okay. I'd like to have someone move 5A. Are we going one item?
I think we
item
have
at
Yes,
a time?
one
or-
item we
Okay.
would request that we do it one
It's
at
not
a
on the
time.
agenda in front of me, so I don't know which 5A what. Which one? The to renew and to add, whichever one that is.
Oh, I see.
Commission, motion, the third motion on your that states that the motion to approve the applicants for an owner's permit to operate 11 non-emergencies, that's the one that you, if you wish to provide the additional 6, that's the motion that you will approve.
Okay, then I will move 5A3.
I'll second it.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Sline,
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman,
Yes.
Commissioner Welch.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item.
Item 5B, report regarding application by H&S Medical Transportation Incorporated, doing business as Transit Line for renewal of an owner's permit to operate non-emergency medical vehicle service in the city of Glendale. 5B1, motion to approve the renewal application for an owner's permit to operate 3 non-emergency medical vehicles in Glendale by Transit Line. 5B2, motion to deny the renewal application for an owner's permit to Transit Line Incorporated to operate 3 non-emergency medical vehicles in Glendale and continuing the matter with no further notice to April 27th, 2009.
Okay, thank you.
I'll move 5B1.
Okay. Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Sline,
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman,
Yes.
Commissioner Welch.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item, Eric.
Item 5C, report regarding application by South Coast Medical Transportation for a renewal of an owner's permit to operate non-emergency medical vehicle service in the city of Glendale. 5C1, motion to approve the renewal application for an owner's permit to operate 1 non-emergency medical vehicle in Glendale by South Coast Medical Transportation. 5C2, motion to deny the renewal application for an owner's permit to South Coast Medical Transportation to operate 1 non-emergency medical vehicle in Glendale and continuing the matter with no further notice to April 27th, 2009. 5C3, motion to approve the application for an owner's permit to operate 4 non-emergency medical vehicles in Glendale by South Coast Medical Transportation. 5C4, motion to deny the application for an owner's permit to South Coast Medical Transportation to operate 4 non-emergency medical vehicles in Glendale and continuing the matter with no further notice to April 27th, 2009.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Any comments?
Sorry. This is already started with 1 permit, and now they're expanding to requesting that 3 additional permits be allowed by the city.
I'll move 5C3.
I have a question.
Oh,
though.
sorry.
My math is coming up differently then, because I'm coming up with 15 new. I mean, I just did a quick review, so I'm coming up with 15 total additional applications. Because the first one alone was 6, and then we got 3 here. That's 9 right there. And there's a total of 90. Was that what I saw in the chart
With the
Original.
existing one.
with the existing ones?
Yes.
90 existing licenses. No, that's number of vans.
Those are the number of permits. There's one more. Yes, there is 90 number of vans that are permitted.
But we're approving licenses, not vans, right?
Right.
So it's
Basically,
actually,
that's license. They can get the permit, but if they do not actually they come in for the application. So they may have a permit, but then they do not necessarily license all the vehicles. Sometimes one company may have 5 permits, but they only do it four of them or 3 of them, depending on their demand for that particular year. But right now, there's 90 that are permitted total, plus the ones that we will be adding.
Okay, I think I missed something there. So you're saying sometimes they get a license but don't necessarily attach a van to it. But in this case, we've got 5 more vans than we have licenses. So how does that work?
There's 90 vans that were permitted. 85 of those were licensed. In other words, they came to the city clerks, they actually submitted. So today that you approve a permit application for, let's say, for 3, they still have to go to the city clerk's office to submit, to show their vehicle. Vehicle has to be inspected, show the drivers, provide all the information.
Okay.
Let's say if they didn't, one of them failed or they didn't have the proper license or information for the driver, then they will only receive from the 3, they only get 2. So
Okay.
that's why always there's a difference between the number of permits and the number of vans.
So what we're actually voting on tonight are the van permits.
Van permits, that's correct.
So it's 90 now, and we're adding potentially 15 to 105.
That's correct.
Okay. I'm clear now.
Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Weissman
I
already
made the
made a
motion.
move. Mr. Welch?
You moved the motion? Yes, I'll second it.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Chair Pro Tem Sulayan,
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman,
Yes.
Commissioner Welch.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item, Eric.
Item 5D, report regarding application by Best Ride for an owner's permit to operate non-emergency medical vehicle service in the city of Glendale. 5D1, motion to approve the application for an owner's permit to operate one non-emergency medical vehicle in Glendale by Best Ride. 5D2, motion to deny the application for an owner's permit to Best Ride to operate one non-emergency medical vehicle in Glendale and continuing the matter with no further notice to April 27, 2009. 5D3, motion to approve the application for an owner's permit to operate 4 non-emergency medical vehicles in Glendale by Best Ride. 5D4, motion to deny the application for an owner's permit to Best Ride to operate 4 non-emergency medical vehicles in Glendale and continuing the matter with no further notice to April 27th, 2009.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from commissioners or staff?
If you wish, I can give you a brief overview. However, this is a new applicant. They're requesting for 4. As it's a new applicant, based on our previous experience, we've recommended to Commission to start with 1 vehicle, and then if they succeed or we have no problems with their operations, then they can certainly come back to the Commission in the future years. So we're recommending 1 vehicle permit.
Okay. Commissioners?
Okay, so I'll move 5D1.
I'll second.
Okay. And 5D1 is for 1. Okay. Roll call, please.
Chair Pro Tem Sulayan,
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman,
Yes.
Commissioner Welch.
Yes.
Okay. Next item, Eric.
Item 5E, report regarding application by Comfort Medical Transportation for an owner's permit to operate non-emergency medical vehicle service in the city of Glendale. 5E1, motion to approve the application for an owner's permit to operate one non-emergency medical vehicle in Glendale by Comfort Medical Transportation. 5E2, motion to deny the application for an owner's permit to Comfort Medical Transportation to operate one non-emergency medical vehicle in Glendale and continuing the matter with no further notice to April 27th, 2009.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners?
No questions. Let's see, this is E.
This is
5E. I will move 5E1.
I'll second it.
okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
Chair Pro Tem Sulayan,
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman,
Yes.
Commissioner Welch.
Yes.
Thank you. Next item, Eric.
Item 5F, report regarding application by Gentle Care Transport for an owner's permit to operate non-emergency medical vehicle service in the city of Glendale. 5F1, motion to approve the application for an owner's permit to operate one non-emergency medical vehicle in Glendale by Gentle Care Transport. 5F2, motion to deny the application for an owner's permit to Gentle Care Transport to operate one non-emergency medical vehicle in Glendale and continuing the matter with no further notice to April 27th, 2009. 5F3, motion to approve the application for an owner's permit to operate two non-emergency medical vehicles in Glendale by Gentle Care Transport. 5F4, motion to deny the application for an owner's permit to Gentle Care Transport to operate two non-emergency medical vehicles in Glendale and continuing the matter with no further notice to April 27th, 2009.
Okay, thank you. I have a card for this item. Mr. Eddie Avakian? Yes. Sure.
Thank you, members of the Commission. Just want to let you know a little bit about Gentle Care Transport Company. We're currently out of
Your
Duarte.
name, please, for the record. Excuse me.
My name is Eddie Avakian, and I'm here in behalf of Gentle Care Transport Company. We're a gurney transport company, strictly gurney. I was just reviewing the list of the companies that are in Glendale. They're mainly wheelchair companies. We do not provide wheelchair service. We're strictly a gurney company. We provide services to the patients that they're bed rest, they can't move, they're mainly paralyzed. Their lifespan is up to 3 months or 6 months, and we're very specialized in that type of service. The reason we're requesting for 2 permits, because some of our patients, due to economy reasons, are being transferred from one facility to another facility. And we felt that there's a need for us to be around Glendale area. And that's what we're requesting for 2 permits. Again, we're not out of Glendale, we're out of Duarte area, but we do have patients that occasionally, because of the economy situations and the facilities not be able to have them, they're being transferred. And these patients are totally paralyzed, and we're strictly a gurney company, not a wheelchair company. And I just noticed we're one of the ones that in a list that is provided by City of Glendale, that majority of them, or just about all of them, are wheelchair company.
Mr. Bagdani?
Mr. Chairman, that is true, and that is a fact that you can consider as part of your deliberation. Staff will not have an objection. If you not an objection, staff will take that into consideration for giving them the additional permit, given the fact that they operate somewhat different than the other operators. So the Commission may wish to consider that. One of the reasons we have the hearing is that, the information that are provided to us, we provide to the Commission, and you can receive input at the Commission meeting and make that decision. And as a result, we provide you with the 2 options as to whether, you can approve what staff is recommending or what the applicant is actually requesting. So you have both of those options for consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Ask a question?
Yes,
Mr. Speaker?
sure.
Mr. Avakian, how many vans do you operate total?
We have a total of 6 vans, but we're only requesting for 2 permits in Glendale.
Okay. And your primary is in Duarte, you said?
We're in Duarte, but we
City of
service-
Hope and stuff like that?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Any questions for Simon?
No questions. I would be inclined to support an application for 2 if it indeed is a specialized service and the demand is there.
How long have you been in business?
We started, we formed the corporation in 2007.
So you're still fairly new?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Okay.
It's only one more van. I wouldn't have a problem with it.
So that would be item 5F.
Yeah, one of us has to do it, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, so I will go ahead and move 5F3.
I will second.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Eric.
Chair Pro Tem Sulayem,
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman,
Yes.
and Commissioner Welch.
Yes.
Okay. Next item, Eric.
Item 5G, report regarding application by Health Trans for an owner's permit to operate non-emergency medical vehicle service in the city of Glendale. 5G1, motion to approve the application for an owner's permit to operate one non-emergency medical vehicle in Glendale by Health Trans. 5G2, motion to deny the application for an owner's permit to Health Trans to operate one non-emergency medical vehicle in Glendale and continuing the matter with no further notice to March to April 27th, 2009. 5G3, motion to approve the application for an owner's permit to operate 3 non-emergency medical vehicles in Glendale by Health Trans Transport. 5G4, motion to deny the application for an owner's permit to Health Trans to operate 3 non-emergency medical vehicles in Glendale and continuing the matter with no further notice to April 27th, 2009.
Thank you. I have one speaker for this item. Mr. Armen Sarafian. Sure.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Armen Sarafian. I'll be speaking on behalf of Health Trans. We are a new established company out of Glendale. I know it is customary for Glendale to approve 1 permit per new company, but we are requesting a total of 3. Reason being, initially when we first started, we requested the permits back out in July. That's when the opening was for the request of the permits. However, because it has taken so much time and so much time has elapsed, we have had a big demand in clientele. So we are requesting for the City of Glendale to allow us at least 2, if not the 3, just to help us out. Because we are based out of Glendale, I don't want to name any names. Because of privacy purposes as to which companies we're working with. I haven't gotten their approval to mention them, but they are in the report, as we have recommendations from them. So what I am asking from you today is to at least approve for 2, and then if future years, if things do pick up and there's a higher demand, we would like to continue applying for more permits.
Thank you. Mr. Sarafian, as you know, you just said it yourself, as a customer, first time you established, as a customer, we only approve 1.
Correct.
So it would be unfair to make an exception if someone else comes in the picture and we tell them, if someone requests just like yourself, requesting 2 or 3, and we'll make an exception. So
I do understand the case. The permit is for 2009 permits are going to be the window of opportunity is going to open back up in July. So if we were back in 2008 and this is the permits that I'm requesting is for 2008, the application was submitted back in July of 2008. So in just 4 months time, the window is going to open up again for companies to resubmit their applications. So all I'm really asking for is to be forwarded 3 months, nothing further.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments from my fellow commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, it's true. When July to August, we allow all the cab operators or non-emergency operators that wish to add or operating new to apply again. So once they apply, we do their background checks, we go through the process. Usually, we bring these items to the Commission in November. So it will be in November time frame where this item will be discussed. Given the number of issues that we had on the Commission schedule, this is why we have a longer, a delay in processing these applications. And given the fact that we have a number of those, that's why we had a delay. But technically, you will be seeing the new applications or additional applications for permits in November of this year. So the applicant, if you granted them 1 now, they can apply in July for additional permits, and then their application will be considered for additional vehicles in November time. If you were to add, if they apply for additional.
Right. Are these permit process once a year or every 6 months?
We only allow once a year to apply, unless an applicant can show that there is an urgent matter that they need to, provide this kind of a service, and so we will bring that as a special request to the Commission. The ordinance allows that. But in most cases, we've always received the applications in July for renewals or additional vehicles or new applicants, and then we process them in November.
Okay, thank you.
And so when an application is approved by us, how long until it officially goes into effect for a company?
Depends on if the applicant provides their insurance, does all their testing, the vehicle is inspected. Steve, if you could just give us a ballpark time frame if...
Yes, Commissioner, they have a 90 days after approval, but I would say within a month, 3 weeks, depending on how fast they get their insurance, then we inspect the vehicles, and then the drivers apply. I would say roughly within a month. But they have 90 days to apply.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, also, Chairman Pro Tem, there's one issue, and you may wish to request the applicant to clarify. Under the vehicle description, there is one vehicle that they stated that they have. I am not sure if they also have the additional vehicles already purchased. That might be something that you may wish to consider. If the applicant has already invested, they have 3 vehicles that they were planning to use for the operation. Many times the applicants, from my experiences, they come in and first they get the permit. If maybe they have 1 vehicle, but they say they will add more vehicles if they get the permit, or they will buy additional vehicles if they get the permit. If they're operating in another city, they may already have the vehicles available, so all they have to do is bring it to Glendale to license them. So that's a consideration you may want to take into account if the applicant actually has the additional vehicles, or 1 more if you wish to give them 1 more, if they actually have the vehicle. I'm not sure if they do, and they may address the commission.
Okay. Can you step up, please?
Once again, my name is Armin Sarafian, and yes, we do have 1 vehicle current, which is a brand new vehicle, but we are waiting for Glendale's approval to add another vehicle. We will not add a second vehicle to the fleet if we are not approved of a second permit for the sole purpose of financial reasons. There's no need for a vehicle to be parked for 1 full year to get a second, to apply for a permit. Therefore, that's the reason why there isn't a second vehicle. But an order has been placed. It's just pending an approval, and the approval is sitting at your desk. So if you do approve, the vehicle will be, because these vehicles are custom made after a van has been purchased, they are then converted to ADA standards. So currently there is 1 van and 2 that are on standby.
How many are you approved for in Burbank?
Burbank, we currently have 1 permit, but Burbank does not limit you and doesn't have such a long application process. As mentioned earlier, they just require you to fill out 1 form, and you're granted a permit as you wish. So anyone could walk into the city of Burbank and get as many permits as they want at any given time without going in front of a board or anyone.
Is that true?
Yes.
As long as you are not operating in Burbank. I mean, as long as you're not a business in Burbank. If you're an outside business, such as myself, if I'm located in Glendale, I could go in at Burbank and ask for as many permits as I wish. If I was in Burbank, then the process is a little bit more stringent.
That's interesting.
For outside companies, it's much easier. So therefore, we currently have 1 permit with the city of Burbank and 1 pending your approval with the city of Glendale.
Now, in this particular vehicle, it says here it's a gurney transportation?
It's gurney and wheelchair, yes. It's
gurney and wheelchair.
Yes, it's equipped to do both. And as mentioned by the previous gentleman that spoke, that is a niche in the market that not too many companies in Glendale are taking advantage of. And given the recommendations and the references that I've presented for my application, I already have a close niche to a group of local businesses and doctors and a hospital that I'll be working with indirectly. So the business is there, just pending your approval.
Okay, thank you. Well, so this is the second company that has a gurney option that we can have in the city.
Chairman, you may, if the commission desires to give them additional permit for one more, I would stipulate some kind of a condition that they, within the 90 days that they have the vehicle, some proof of purchase of the vehicle that shows that they're actually intent to get the second permit and acquire the second vehicle and put it in service.
Okay.
If that's the direction that you would like to go.
Is that strictly necessary? If they don't do it within the 90 days, wouldn't the license lapse anyway?
Yes, it does.
It does?
Yes. Right.
So he's going to have 90 days regardless.
Going to have
so.
90 days. As I said, if you want to stipulate that further, that could be part of your motion.
Okay. Do we need to modify?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. I wouldn't have no objection to giving him one more. Just like we did with the other gentleman. So.
Okay.
Either one of the motions can be modified, Ms. Sansoni. If we can modify either one, either first motion or the third motion that is in the affirmative, to change that instead of 3 or 1 to 2.
That's correct, Mr. Chair, Mr. Pro Tem, and members of the Commission. You may modify probably G1 to make it 2 with the proviso that the second vehicle be purchased within the 90 days as specified.
Okay, so I will go ahead and move 5G1 with the modifications that were just discussed for the conditions of the second vehicle and changing it from 1 to 2. Is that everything?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. Thank you. Eric, roll call.
Chair Pro Tem Sulayan,
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman,
Yes.
Commissioner Welch.
Yes. Okay.
Doing our part to help small business.
Yeah. Okay, next item, Eric.
Item 7, Commission staff comments updates.
Updates?
Oh, I will go after you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I have one. It's regarding what I raised that issue last month regarding the cameras on Verdugo and Mountain, regarding the signal lightings between red and yellow. When it changes, any updates on that?
Chairman Pro Tem, we have looked at that, and staff is working with our contractor to make an adjustment for that later time of the night to allow additional green time for Mountain, so that at that point no vehicles are caught. The timing is shorter because it's a fully actuated traffic signal. Our signal is designed to give preference on Verdugo Road. So it's always, the side street, which is Mountain. We reduce the time on Mountain so that we can always maintain a, higher volume. It's on Verdugo. So we want to give priority to Verdugo Road. I've requested staff to work with our maintenance contractor to adjust the timing, add additional timing later on at night, because that seemed to be the time of the night that there was an issue with that. So we're working on it, and that should be addressed very soon.
And I believe it wasn't only on Mountain and Verdugo.
Yeah, it was
Welch.
Los Feliz as it crossed over Brand. I think was the same issue.
Yeah. Again, we're looking at all of them because in that case also Brand Boulevard has priority over Los Feliz, so that's the reason we're checking the timing of all of them.
Thank you.
A couple of comments, if now is the right time. I know the city of Glendale back in the mid '90s did a master plan for bikeways and other supports for two-wheelers in the city of Glendale, and I know there are some efforts underway right now, specifically in the unincorporated portion of the Crescenta Valley. And there may possibly be funding available to add bike lanes to Foothill Boulevard. And I know in the City of Glendale master plan, it does indicate that the foothill through the City of Glendale was one of the priorities in that plan. I'm kind of wondering, is that plan still alive in some sense? Is it still being considered for implementation? The reason being because we do have efforts going underway right now in other jurisdictions, specifically for foothill, and I'm wondering if Glendale can participate in that effort.
Commissioner Weissman, the master plan is still valid. One of the things that we've done in terms of putting in striped bike lanes, for example, is whenever we do a major resurfacing of a street, we will then look at the master plan, and if there was a bicycle lanes planned for that street, then we add it. For example, Glen Oaks Boulevard just recently, we had to wait a number of years because the entire striping of the lanes had to be changed in order to put in a bicycle lane. So once we paved it, then we put in the bicycle lane. Foothill Boulevard has been on our list for that same purpose. There's also a planning effort that is underway on Foothill Boulevard by the planning department, and they're working with the businesses, with the neighbor community to to receive input as to essentially improving Foothill Boulevard, whether it's the sidewalks, it's the bicycle lanes, or the median. What are the different things that they can do to make Foothill Boulevard a nicer street? So there is meetings going on right now with the planning staff, and
I've been participating.
Yes,
in them,
and so we are basically following that. If nothing happens with with that plan, we will come back and actually stripe the bicycle lane to provide continuity along Foothill Boulevard, because it goes into Crescenta Valley, and it makes sense that you have a continuous bicycle facility along Foothill. So we are aware of that. We want to give a chance to the businesses and the community along Foothill within the City of Glendale to kind of do that planning effort, or at least get everybody's input, because every time we've dealt with that issue, there's some pros and cons, or some businesses are not too much in favor of bicycle lanes for whatever good or bad reason. So that provides an outreach opportunity for that. But we will stay engaged, and the bicycle master plan is valid, and we implement them as we can, as we do the improvements.
Thanks very much. The other thing I wanted to ask about relates to an issue that kind of came up during the last meeting regarding preferential parking for Burchett Street. And it had to do with the calculations for the percentage to determine if you have 75% compliance for preferential parking. One of the issues that I guess I'm still not clear about has to do with vacant units, and whether vacant units should be counted as part of that calculation. And I think the indication was that they are currently counted the way it is done right now. I'm wondering if there's any interest in my colleagues in possibly agendizing this issue for discussion among ourselves, or for clarification from the City Council as to the intent of the policy for calculation of percentages for preferential parking.
Commissioner Warren, this actually that issue is the first time has come up over all these years we've done preferential parking. So we're looking at that. We'll come up when we bring in the Burchett issue to the commission. We will come up with some suggestions and receive commission's input. If you're agreeable to that, we will then make that into a form of an amendment to the ordinance, and then we go through the process of taking City Council and deal with that issue, because it will definitely come up again.
Yeah, and as I recall, there was some discussion about possible compromise and possible meetings between the parties. Is there any update on that?
Yes, I was going to be updating you on that item.
Okay, thanks. That's what I had.
That's it? Okay. Sir Welsh?
Yeah, I mean, just following on with that, if there's going to be an effort to take a look at the code language for preferential parking, I think it would be a very good idea to consider other aspects, like the district parking thing that came up earlier. I mean, that was one of the questions that occurred to me when they put in parking on or preferential parking on my street. Why is it specifically on just my street when, 100 feet away is another street, and sometimes people park, on different streets, even though they technically live on different streets, but they will often park very nearby because, the streets the neighborhoods are so small. So in those particular instances, a district-type parking arrangement is just logical, and so it might be something we want to consider as well.
We will definitely bring that to the commission and receive your input, kind of give you examples of the pros and cons of the district and how it may work or may not work. We'll have to do some research and find out of what other cities have done and what's working, what doesn't work, and I think that would be a good subject for the commission to discuss. As it relates to Burchett, Chairman Sahakian and myself and Mr. King and Mr. Bill Ortiz, we met and we discussed the issue of Burchett. We all agreed that they will go back and meet with all the residents and try to get basically a consensus among all of them to go with a 1-hour parking restriction along Burchett, so that both parties can convince the residents that they worked with in the past to make sure that they get more than 75%. And we don't have to deal with the vacant property issue. We have enough signatures to support that. So that currently they're engaged, and until I actually see the petition, I won't be bringing that back to you. Tentatively, we agree that if they get their signatures and they take care of all the issues, that we'll bring this to the commission in April. If they have it, we'll bring it to the commission.
I'm just curious. There was one, I believe it was a condo, an apartment, that the folks were telling us that it doesn't exist, yet we were counting that.
Yeah,
we're checking all of those. Yes, we're checking the properties. We're looking at the utility buildings. We're going to make sure that everything is okay before it comes to the commission.
So it's coming next month?
Well, if they get their petition and we know for a fact that there's no issues, we will bring it to the commission. Otherwise, we'll just postpone it until we take care of all the issues.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments?
I have a couple of updates for the commission. Number one, the city council, Councilmember Najarian had directed staff to bring an issue regarding the proposed Safe Streets initiative. He had come up with a number of ideas that he felt that we need to engage in as a city in order to improve safety along the streets. This item is one of those items that council directly wants to receive information on it. So on March 28, this got approved for tomorrow's agenda. I have copies of the staff report that I would like to provide to you for your information. However, as this item, Eric, would you please hand this out? This item will involve a team of experts from Berkeley, University of California, that will be involved with the city, and we will be forming a committee that will participate in a workshop, and a small workshop and a 3-day workshop that will involve the city staff. I will provide that information to the commission, and we'll definitely would like to have participation from at least 2 commissioners, so we don't have the violation of the Brown Act, but at least participation from 2 commissioners for the workshop on the whole process, because there will be recommendations that may come back to the commission for your approval, recommendation to council. So this is one of those, essentially like a subcommittee that you will be involved in with the city. So if anyone, as soon as I have the information and if it gets approved tomorrow night at the city council, I will provide the commissioners with that information, and either one of you that is interested, you will be able to participate in that. That's the first one related to safety. The second item, the city is engaged in, we're preparing applications to what's called Safe Route to School grant process. Every year or every 2 years, Caltrans has a process where you apply for grant funds for improving safety around schools. Whether that safety could be, installation of traffic signals or putting in sidewalks, improving median islands, provide safe areas for crossing at intersections. and looking essentially to an engineering aspect, engineering enforcement and education. You can even have educational programs funded. In the past, we have been successful in obtaining this grant. We have retained a consultant that has had a very good expertise in this process, and we are going to target 4 schools in the Glendale Unified School District that we believe that there's potentially opportunities for improvements. As part of that process, because the application is due April 15, we need to have a meeting that will have all the stakeholders. That's the school principals of the individual schools that we will be considering, parents or PTO members that are interested, and the school district staff and the City of Glendale staff. This Friday at 9 a.m., we'll have a small workshop with our consultant to go through this process. And I would like to invite the commissioners, again, I will send you the information about this particular meeting. It will be probably about a 4 to 5 hour effort. We will receive input from all the stakeholders. This way, it goes through the grant process. It will make the grant application a lot stronger. Subsequent to that, we will then work with the consultant to identify the actual problem. So this gives the opportunity to each school to tell us what are their issues, what are their concerns are. We will take that into account. We'll do field surveys. We'll provide traffic data, etc., and then we'll prepare the application and submit it to Caltrans for their consideration. So if you're interested, again, as soon as the agenda comes out, which I believe will come out by Wednesday, I will forward that information via fax, email to commissioners. We would definitely like to have participation from the Commission, because this is a school safety issue that you are hearing in the community, and we're making every effort to do everything we can, whether it's the funding, grant process, or these other efforts to enhance safety around the schools and pedestrian safety throughout the city. The third item that we've been directed from City Council to be brought back to them is looking at the operating hours of the parking meters in the downtown area. As you recall, the Commission recommended approval, and we implemented new operating hours that starts at from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night. And we are preparing a staff report. Could potentially go to City Council for their April 1st meeting. I will, as soon as that is approved, I will send a copy of that report for you for your consideration. We don't have time to bring it to the Commission, but we will be seeking direction from City Council as to what they want to do with respect to the operating hours. If they want us to change it, then we will bring it back to the Commission for your recommendation. If they don't want to change it, they want to keep it the way it is. We're just providing information as to the experience we had with the installation of the multi-space meters on Brand. We've engaged with the Brand Boulevard Merchants Association, and they don't want to change anything. That's the input we have received from them. So we will package all that information, provide it to the City Council, and then based on the direction we get from Council, we'll bring it back to the Commission for your recommendation.
So Welsh?
What's prompting council? Have they received
There's
complaints?
been some complaints about the fact that some of the business establishments, for example, that they have clients that they want to go to a movie or have dinner. That may take more than 3 hours. That 2-hour parking is available on Brand, so 2 hour may not be enough after 6 p.m. Or if they're parking in the surface lots have a 3-hour limit. So they're seeking, is it necessary to go till 10 p.m. at night? Maybe we should stop at 8 p.m. at night. The merchants, the Brand merchants they think what we have in place is working. That's the input we have received. Because if you want to park longer, then you can park in the parking structures where we're providing 90-minute free parking, and you can park more than the 3-hour or the 2-hour limit that's on Brand or on the surface lots. Potentially, what we're recommending is to look at each surface lots individually. Lot 6, which is off of Orange Street, for example, we maybe go to 4-hour parking. That way you can accommodate the restaurants in the area, you can accommodate the center theater, that may have clients that have the both needs to go to a restaurant and a theater at the same time, and they don't want to park in the parking structure. They can park on the street. So that's the type of information we're providing to City Council to see if they want to change it, and we're seeking input from the merchants as well.
I think, Mr. Bagdanian, I raised that issue last time.
Yeah.
If in case it doesn't go to council, it would be a good idea, because I think, I speak for myself, beside the lots, there are issues such as the one I mentioned last time on Broadway in front of the post office. I know when we voted on this, we cover the whole area. If we can, I don't want to call it cherry picking, but if we can itemize each section where I feel it's an issue and that has nothing to do with folks who are parking on Brand or Central. If it doesn't go to council, if it's permissible that come to us, it would be a great idea, because we can brainstorm, all of us, and give the council what we think. But if that's not possible, that's fine.
We will have a better idea, again, if the item goes to council for next week.
Right.
We'll get some direction from council and bring it back to you. Either they'll direct us that to leave the restrictions alone, which still doesn't mean that we can't come to the commission for input. And I think for us, the most important factor is the businesses that are their clients that use the on-street parking or off-street parking. They provide us with that information. So we'll be bringing back that item to the commission.
Most of the businesses after 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., especially on weekends, they're closed. I mean, we even cover up to Orange Street, and Orange Street is empty. Nobody parks there. And I saw the sign until 10 p.m., you need to put the coins. Same issue on Broadway, right in front of the post office, and the post office closes at 6. So little things like that.
Yes, we will definitely bring that
we
back.
can tune it a little bit.
Sure. There will be fine-tuning that needs to be done. So this is part of that process.
Okay, thank you.
I mentioned already the Burchett Street. I think that basically covers the updates that I wanted to provide to the commission.
So recapping, we have how many committees? Today I heard like at least 2 or 3.
Well,
right?
essentially, one would
potential.
be to for the Safe Route to School, which is on a meeting that was going to take place on Friday. That would be just one meeting. And so if you desire to be part of that effort, that's the first meeting. As if council approves the Safe Streets Initiative tomorrow night, any meetings that may take place as a result of that, we will then bring those. We provide you with information if you desire to be part of it. I certainly encourage you to be. Then you'll have that information.
And what is the requirement? Minimum 2, or can it be? Is that the minimum, or it's maximum 2?
Maximum of 2. That way we don't have an issue with a quorum.
Okay.
Brown Act.
Right.
I see. Okay. And
then the issue of Carr Maynard Street issue that Commissioner Weissman has volunteered on that one.
It's only because I don't have a day job.
Okay, I understand.
okay.
I appreciate your involvement.
And how about the multi-family parking enforcement?
As soon as the planning department comes up with a process and establishes some dates, I'll provide that information to the commission, and either one of you that is interested, then you can let us know, and then we'll schedule you to be a part of those meetings.
That's also maximum 2?
Yes.
Maximum 2, yes.
Maximum 2.
So it's not a meeting with the planning or the city council and the TPC?
This will be scheduling meetings with the property owners and staff to come up with some solutions.
Okay.
I would suggest we appoint that committee tonight.
Well, there's 2 members are missing, unless you're interested.
Are you interested?
I'm interested, very much so, depending on what day and
well, obviously we will
make arrangements to attend.
Our goal would be to accommodate your schedule, so these will be scheduled in advance so that you know ahead of time when the meetings are.
Okay.
Potentially they will be during the day because of the people that are involved in, but we will be able to let them. I mean, there's no reason that Commissioner Welsh and Commissioner Saline, you both cannot volunteer for that. If another commissioner wants it, then we can alternate possibly. But at this stage, I think it'll be consistent if you wish to continue.
My preference would be to appoint two particular people, because then they can really get into the nuts and bolts of it. I think if you want to do it, that's fine. Let's have you guys do it, and I can serve as an alternate, for example.
Right.
But that we really should keep it focused on the two people appointed, so that they can really get in and understand the guts of the issue, because this is going to be a complicated one.
That's correct.
Complicated one.
Except this item is, I believe it's coming in midsummer, right?
Yes.
Okay.
At least
I'll be interested, but I'll give up. I mean, I know Mr. Weissman has a lot of free time.
So far,
I'm just worried that
I see
maybe
it
Mr.
rapidly disappearing.
Sahakian will be interested, or
Well,
you
would-
interested too.
Do you want to just agendize it for our next meeting, when the other guys can be here and we can have a more discussion of it?
That would be preferable.
Okay, sure, fine.
No problem. I'll put it on the agenda for
And
next
that
one.
covers also
I'll make a list of
Okay.
the committees that we've discussed that we will be
Right.
forming, or subcommittees technically, and then I'll list the names of the commissioner who have volunteered, for example, Commissioner Weissman, and then if at the next meeting you can decide who wants to be on what committee.
that'd be great.
Okay, fine. Do we need to vote on that? To putting that on the agenda?
It's not necessary to vote on it. But I do have another matter to take up with the commission when you've completed your comments.
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. General.
Mr. Chair Pro Tem and members of the commission, just come to our attention that there's a gentleman here by the name of Arthur Israelian. He's with Best Ride. It was item number 5D tonight. The commission has granted one vehicle. Mr. Israelian has informed me that he is seeking additional vehicles. He did not come in front of the commission to ask for the additional vehicle because there was a misunderstanding about who he was giving his papers to, as to explain why he wanted an additional vehicle. He has an explanation that he'd like to give to the commission. Because this meeting has not adjourned, it is within the commission's power to reconsider, if it so chooses, a motion that's already passed. And because this is part of Robert's Rules of Order, which we do follow here in the city, it is possible, if the commission wishes, to reopen the matter, take in additional evidence, and then reconsider its motion. But that's within your discretion to do.
And what is the specific issue on Best Right? What was it?
Mr. Israelian tells me, and he can speak before the commission if you'd like them to, he tells me that he does have a letter from a particular customer that he would like to frequently work with through the month. And for that reason, there is a need for more than one vehicle. He has a specific customer in mind. And I'm sure that Mr. Israelian can speak to the issue if the commission wishes to hear it.
Okay. I will not have any problem.
I have no problem.
I have no objection.
It's fine.
Go right ahead.
My name is Arthur Israelian, and I'm with Best Ride.
Okay.
We've been actually doing non-emergency transportation past 2 years, starting 2007 August, and Mrs. Getty, Adolphine Finney Getty, which is she's a wife of J. Paul Getty, late, and she's been our customer past year and a half, and she's actually she requested a couple of times to be in the city of Glendale, and we tried to explain that we cannot provide within the city of Glendale transportation to her, but we're basically a primary transportation, and she mostly travels in Beverly Hills, in Burbank, and Glendale. And we have a lot of customers from Burbank that needs transportation to Glendale, or let's say Alameda, which is one street away. It's Glendale and Burbank. So one van, I think, will be enough for us to transporting just patients. But for her, particular for that customer, because she's ongoing, every day pretty much, she wants to go somewhere, and Basically they said that they send a letter to City of Glendale, and I request the fax just in case if it's not going to get to you. And I have that letter here if you want to take a look at it. If it's possible to have an extra permit just for her, just to have two permitted vehicles within the city of Glendale, we will appreciate it, and I guess she is also.
So you're requesting 2 vehicles instead of 1?
Yes, if it's possible.
I'm curious. Are we allowed to dedicate 1 vehicle for one particular customer and the rest for the rest of the city? How does this thing works if we go that route?
Chairman Pro Tem, that's technically up to the applicant, the way they want to operate their business. We do not regulate as to if they dedicate their vehicle to one applicant or many applicants, one customer or other customers. So if they have one client that wants to have the vehicle all day or so many times a week, it's up to them how to provide that service. We do not regulate that.
And this business is a new business for the city, right?
That's correct. This is a new applicant. But they ask for 4 vehicles.
Right.
We recommended 1. And if Commission desires to give another one, that is something that you can consider. Basically, we looked at it as a new application, new business.
Right.
However, they do have, I just want to double verify with the applicants that they have 4 vehicles that you own
We
currently.
actually, right now, own 6 in our fleet. We add 2 more after we apply for the application. So right now we have 6 vans.
At the time of the application, we request vehicle descriptions, and they provided us the 4 vehicles that are 2007, 2008 vehicles that are listed in the staff report. So they have the vehicles available. They operate in another city. They're seeking the permit in Glendale.
What other cities do you operate in?
We operate mainly in Beverly Hills and Burbank, and our application in Los Angeles is still pending. We hope it's going to be pretty soon. And right now, just Beverly Hills and Burbank.
Commission needs to also just a clarification that anybody can, drop someone in another city. They just cannot pick up if there's a requirement for a permit. So their client that they're bringing from whatever city, from Beverly Hills or Burbank into Glendale, they can still do that. It's that on the return trip, if they usually in this case, that's why some of these applicants are seeking permits from both cities, is because they cannot, especially an ambulatory client that needs a wheelchair or they're on a gurney, you can't just bring in one trip and then have another operator arrange to pick them up, take them back. So it's not practical. For that reason, they're seeking to have permits in both cities.
I just don't want to set precedent, because if we're going to go as a customer as new business, 1 license, and 4 months from now in July, I believe he can request 1 additional vehicles and can come back in November. It's not that far away, but it all depends what my fellow commissioner said. If everybody comes and says something very similar to what you said, which is true, I don't dispute that, then we have to give exception to everyone. I just don't want to give. I mean, the first gentleman who came, new business, had a gurney, and that was a.
Actually, that's where I was going to. Actually, have that capable to do gurney transportation when we start the business. And the thing is, with the gurney transportation, it's not common because mostly that the patients are paralyzed, they need the oxygen, they want to go in an ambulance. They need to go in an ambulance, not in a gurney. But we have 2, I can mention the numbers, unit number 11 and 12. They are capable to do gurney. I mean, we can even start from tomorrow to do gurney transportation. We have 2, and then we didn't add because there was no, I would say, high demand on that kind of particular like gurney transportation. And that's the reason mostly that we don't do. But we're going to get an ambulance soon. so we can provide gurney in an ambulance, not in a non-emergency.
I see. Okay. Any comments from my...
Well, we've already done this a couple of times tonight, so and, you know, I'm aware of the, you know, the precedent for a single for the new operator, but given what we've done tonight, you know, if there's any other support on the commission for being willing to add a second one, I'd be willing to support that.
Commissioner Welch?
I could go either way. I mean, you know, I agree with your comment about setting a precedent. You know, staff has very carefully crafted, you know, their procedures.
So, yeah, Ms. Sansona, do we need, depending on how we're going to vote, do we need to reword the motion here?
Yes,
Or
members
resend
of
the
the
motion
commission,
first?
what would have to happen is there would need to be a motion to reconsider,
Okay.
and it would have to be voted on. It would be a motion, a second, and a vote. And then you can take up the matter if you wish to reconsider and take your vote again for the motion that you've decided upon. So it really is a two-step process.
Okay. And the motion was the one that we voted on, Eric, was it the...
Allow one vehicle.
Which one? 5D? 5D1. Okay. So it would be something very similar to the previous gentleman, instead of changing the 1 to 2.
Yes.
Second
Then the motion that you finally decide if you choose for 2, for example, you can we can amend the motion again to show 2 vehicles.
Someone...
Just a point of clarification. So the other ones that we allowed to have next one, were those brand new applicants to the city also, or had they already been operating under a permit?
We had a combination that
just one of
they
them
were
was-
already operating, and there was only one case that we had that one applicant that spoke that they wanted to have the 2 permits.
That's correct.
That was the only case, too.
Yeah,
Okay, the
one
other
out of
ones
2.
were already within Glendale. They were operating. They just wanted to expand their business.
Correct.
So we basically already set the precedent.
That's correct. But I believe gentleman mentioned about also a gurney.
Yeah, it was the gurney thing.
That was
That's
the only...
right. That is,
was the only...
Yeah,
that's
I'm
reason-
sure next year you'll see more of those. But
That's correct.
At least for this year, maybe Commission can consider it.
Okay. So we need to reconsider this.
Okay, I'll move to reconsider the motion that was passed at 5D1.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Can we have roll call, please?
Chair Pro Tem Sulayan,
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman,
Yes.
Commissioner Welch.
Yes.
Okay, now we need to reword 5D1 by changing 1 to 2.
So moved.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
We have to vote first.
Okay, Rick, roll call, please.
And I haven't heard a second.
Oh, I'll second it.
Chair Pro Tem Sulayan,
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman.
Yes.
Commissioner Welch.
Yes.
All right, there you go.
Now you can say thank you.
All right.
I like being as a CEO of the company. I really promise that we will provide the best service in Glendale, and you will hear about our company from the residents in Glendale, and that's my word. You will, you won't be upset that you guys give us one more permit to operate non-emergency, and also Mrs. Gary will appreciate that too.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Hope so.
All right.
And I would also hope that staff is going to let us know as soon as there's any indication that we're oversubscribed to non-emergency medical transport vehicles. Right.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Next item, Eric.
Item 8, adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.